Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Cathedra webinar. We are coming to you live on November 18th, 2025. If anybody on here is an NLC webinar first timer, know that our Cathedra webinars get their name from the Greek word for learning. And today you're going to be learning about coaching and mentoring from your instructor, Dr. William R. Latchford, who's president of the Native Peacekeeper Consultant Group. And just so y'all know, this is the first of a full leadership webinar series, so we hope you come back for the rest. Will's going to go over the other dates for you as he goes through his presentation. My name is Brooke Warrington. I'm the Training and Development Specialist here at the Native Learning Center. We're so thrilled that you could join us for today's webinar. If you could follow along as I read the disclaimer aloud, this webinar provides a summary of fundamental concepts, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes. The material discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. We also have our copyright infringement law printed here, so this is just a friendly reminder that the webinar materials are protected by copyright, trademark, trade secret, and other intellectual property laws. Moving forward, if you wish to go back and view the recording, or you want to see PDFs of any of the slides as this series builds out, you can always find that in the courses section here on the learning platform. And then as you join in to watch any of the future webinars, know that you'll just click that green banner at the top of the screen like you did today to join. We do ask that you join with listen-only capabilities. We are recording, and when you join with a mic on, it creates some audio feedback onto the recording. And if you have joined and you are trying to perhaps use your headphones, maybe a Bluetooth speaker, you might not have the little telephone icon down at the bottom of your screen. Yours might be a headset picture instead. But know that if you click on that, that will bring up a list of your speaker devices, and you can select the proper audio output. We do, of course, encourage class participation, even though we ask you to join on mute. We will primarily rely on the public chat for this. So if you don't yet have yours open, you can go over to that messages panel that's on the left-hand side of your screen. And if you click on public chat, that will open it for you. And then down here where it says send message to public chat, that's where you can click to make your comment, ask your questions. If you have any tech support issues that I can help you through, you can definitely let me know down in the chat box. And then if you maybe feel that we missed a question or a comment along the way, you could use that hand raise feature that's down in the bottom right. I do also want to draw attention to the shared notes section that you can open just below the public chat. In that shared notes section, there is a list of helpful links, including a link to today's webinar feedback survey, a link to today's presentation slides, one that you can bookmark so that you can log in easier in the future. And I am going to put a link to the slides into the public chat for you right now, so you can grab that easier. And then if you did join with your mic unmuted, you can always come down to the bottom of the screen and mute yourself by clicking on that mic icon. But before we get started, I do want to ask you guys to please introduce yourselves into the public chat. It's very helpful for the instructor as well as myself here at the NLC. It's also kind of fun to see everybody who's present on the webinar. So you can let us know your name, where you're tuning in from, your work or your role in Indian country. It maybe led you to today's webinar. Maybe you're here for your own personal information and development. That's great too. Or in your tribal affiliation. You might just be a tribal employee and you don't have your own tribal affiliation. That is okay too. And while you're all introducing yourselves in the chat, I just have a quick final note for you to try your best to avoid clicking on that left-hand menu panel that's all the way to the left side of your screen. I guess I should do this. Just know that if you click on that, it doesn't give you like a warning. It'll just immediately pull you from the webinar and take you to whatever you clicked on the menu. So you can always rejoin the webinar again if you do accidentally click on it, but I just wanted to give you a heads up to try to avoid that. All right, folks, while you are introducing yourselves in that chat, it is with great pleasure that I introduce your webinar instructor for today, Dr. William R. Latchford. And Dr. Latchford, I lost your name for a second. There we go. I've made you presenter now.
All right. Thank you, Brooke. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the Native Learning Center webinar platform. It's my honor to be your instructor here today. I'm excited about this series that we've partnered with Native Learning Center. I believe they've created a really good dynamic leadership training. You know, it's very difficult as a manager or an executive to send employees away to all these leadership trainings and get them out of the office, because we understand, you know, days move fast, your responsibilities are are loaded with a lot of things to take care of the communities that you serve, and your community is always the priority. So this gives an opportunity through this leadership strategic growth and innovation webinar series, gives you the opportunity to either take an hour or 90 minutes out of your day over the next 10 months to just improve your leadership journal, right? Leadership is a journey that we all choose to do, and leadership isn't easy. It's a difficult task at times. It's great to have a title, but that title comes with a lot of weight and responsibility. So this series provides that opportunity, and it breaks it down into different titles and subject matters, because leadership isn't just a one-stop shop. There's a lot of different things that you need to continuously work on to be a great leader. And if you get anything out of this webinar or the 16 webinars that this series is going to hold, what I would suggest to you is that you cannot be a good leader if you don't work on yourself. So the reality is that really, by leading yourself and leading yourself the right way, and doing all the things that are required, putting the investment in, and always improving your knowledge, skills, and ability, how you talk to people, how you listen to people, that's really going to make you successful when you lead others. If you can imagine sports teams, a lot of times we think one team is playing against the other, and then the one team that wins beat the other team. The reality is, most of the time when a team wins, it's because they did everything right, that they accomplished all the goals and the tasks and the responsibilities that each position was required to do, and they did everything right. They didn't beat the other team. The other team didn't do as well or didn't do their things right. So from a sense of, did they beat the team? They beat the team by the score. However, the reality is that other team didn't play probably at the threshold or their capabilities or expectations that their coach wanted them to. So if you take that analogy and you bring it back into your housing authority or your tribal governments, and you bring it into the position that you hold as a leader, you always want to focus on maximizing your potential. If you do things right every day and you come in and you try and you maximize your potential in the position you hold, you're going to serve others. And that's what leadership is about. Leadership is never about you. It's about serving others. And when I say serving others, because your end goal should always be training people below you to replace you. And as bad as that sounds, that's the reality of leadership. Leadership is creating that environment so you can train people up to eventually take over your position. And if we think long term, that's going to help our programs, that's going to help our communities, that's going to help our just our service delivery. And we've all been affected by programs or organizations that have had individuals in their programs that have either left or they've transferred into other positions and somebody else has taken over. And when that happens, we see that sometimes the service delivery is shortened. And the reason for that is not because somebody purposely is saying, well, we're not going to provide that level of service to people. It's for the purposes of, because that person isn't at that level that we're used to. So there's a lag in service delivery from that leadership transformation. So our goal is to train people up below us to replace us. So when in fact we get promoted, because that's really should be the goal for all of us, is to continue to move up the ladder and move up as high as we can before you retire. That goal is to teach the people below us to replace us. Now, sometimes people hit their ceilings and they get stuck at a position. That isn't a bad thing to get stuck at a position. They just don't want to go any higher, right? They want to do it that position for a certain reason. It may be financially. It may be, I don't want that extra stress, because as you move up the ladder of leadership, a lot more responsibility comes on your shoulders. A lot more stress is thrown at you and you're put under. And it's up to each individual that is in those positions to manage that stress and manage those circumstances that come. And we choose to do that when we take a position like that. So this leadership strategic growth and innovation webinar series is really a nice segue into just personal development. And today we're going to talk about coaching and mentoring. So we're going to kind of streamline the topics. As you can see, this should be in the PowerPoint that you have access to. It gives the schedules out, so you see the schedules that are going to go for the next 10 months. For today, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we're going to attack coaching and mentoring today. We're going to do becoming management material tomorrow. And then on Thursday, we're going to address communication strategies. As we move into the December, we understand, everybody travels. We have holidays. It's a good time to family and fellowship. And that's important as a leader to always recognize and stay grounded to that family and that fellowship process. So in December, on December 16th, we're going to go over conducting effective reviews and performance reviews. And then we'll hit conflict resolution after the first of the year in February. In February, we'll do development of high reliability organizations. We're going to look at creating a positive work environment. We're going to address different leadership skills that supervisors should have. So in March, we're going to hit the leadership skills. We'll talk a little bit about creative thinking and innovation. And then in March, we'll start the hiring for success, behaviorals when we do interview techniques. That's going to be an important class, because if you always remember, when people come work for us, and you'll hear me say this multiple times today, when they come work for our organizations, they don't know anything about our organizations. They're new. So as a leader, it's our job to train those people to come in and have them understand what those expectations are. And when we train them to come in and learn those expectations, that's going to add into improving, or it should improve, our organizational culture. And so when it comes to leadership, that's an important piece. And then we're going to navigate the emotional intelligence from a leadership standpoint. And a very important topic is dealing with difficult conversations. A lot of times that is a stumbling block for everybody, because we don't like having difficult conversations with people. We would all love to have the environment to always be happy. And just a good communication back and forth, and there's no emotion, with the exception of everybody being happy and joyful. Unfortunately, that's not reality. And so we have to learn how to navigate and manage those difficult conversations. We'll go over, in next September, we'll go over the ABCs of supervising others. We'll address successful managing change. Change is important, and how to deal with change, right? So that's an important thing that we want to address. And we'll talk about meeting management, right? We all attend these staff meetings that we have, or somebody may hold a staff meeting. And the reality is, you have to be strategic with the staff meeting, or we get into that mindset, oh, another meeting I got to go to, and this is really a waste of my time and a waste of my life, and time that I'm never going to get back, right? So we don't want to create that environment. So we have to constantly address some of those issues from a leadership standpoint, And then we'll finally, at the end of the fiscal year, if you run October to September, we'll address the supervisor, or being a professional supervisor. So we're excited about these topics. Again, this isn't every topic as a leader, but it's a good foundation that you can work off to improve your leadership skills. So we hope you can join us on those days. Again, it's in your packet. Put it on your calendar, just as a reminder. And I know Native Learning Center always sends information out. So today we're going to talk about unlocking your team potential, and we're going to address some of the areas of coaching and mentoring. Just take a second, and I want you to self-reflect for yourself. You don't have to share the information with anybody. Just for yourself, as kind of self-reflect and see in your past, in your history as an employee or as a leader that have other leaders or individuals around them, is recognize who those coaches are that you had in the past that really helped you to get to where you're at, right? And there's a difference between coaching and mentoring, and I'll go over a couple of those areas here in a minute. But I want you to just take a moment and appreciate the fact that the people that you are around that have been those coaches to you, or they've been those mentors to you throughout your career, right? And a lot of times when I say that in the live classes that I do for training, we always tend to think, because we want to live in the happy world and always be positive, we can pick out the people that are have been very positively impacting in our journey in leadership, or even throughout our progression of our profession. But I would also tell you, there's some bad coaches that can teach you things. And there's some bad mentors out there that also can teach you things. So as you navigate your leadership journey, what I would share with you is just remember that although there may be bad coaches and bad mentors out there, you still can learn from them. You can learn how not to do things, right? You can learn the things that don't work when it comes to you getting into that position or that next level. You have the real life experience to those things that don't work. So when we talk about coaching and mentoring, we're going to talk about the positiveness and how to be a good coach or a good mentor when we go over these next 90 minutes. But I can't stress to you enough that there's individuals that cross our path that are coaches and mentors, and they try, and they're trying. And I'm a big believer that people aren't malicious to sabotage individuals. They just don't know, and they create this environment where they become bad coaches and mentors. And so you can also learn from them. So if you take anything away from this 90-minute webinar, is just recognize the fact that good coaching, good mentoring, bad coaching, bad mentoring, you can learn from both aspects that can really evolve you and define what type of leader and how good quality a leader that you can be. So when we look at coaching and mentoring, there's a difference. There's a difference when it comes to the two of them. And we're going to focus a little bit more today on coaching. But when we look at coaching, it's more of the short-term environment. It's the skill development. Where are we at when it comes to writing reports? Where are we at when it comes to writing memos? Where are we at when it comes to when we answer the phone when somebody calls our housing organization? How does my interpersonal skills come out, and how do I address the person on the other end of the phone? My skills as far as how I talk to them, how welcoming I am to them. Am I showing compassion to them when they call, right? So as a leader, you want to look at your employees when you're coaching them. Again, we're going to deal with not training, not any discipline or accountability. This is all about coaching. So what can I look for in an individual when it comes to coaching? I'm going to look for those little skill developments, those short-term performance improvements, right? If you picture, we've all played sports as kids, or we were in some sort of arena to where somebody was guiding us, right? And we were learning from them. It wasn't discipline. It was an opportunity to make mistakes. It was the time to where people were coaching us and they were watching us kind of go through the process until we became proficient at whatever that sport or arena that you were in. So when we look at coaching, that's what we want to look at. We want to look at that short-term progression, right? We want to give them that positive reinforcement. We want to give them the opportunity to make those mistakes when we're coaching, and to provide them that support to be successful. Now, when we look at mentoring is hand in hand with coaching, but mentoring is a long-term process for us. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we move forward, but that's the long-term goal, right? What's our long-term goal when it comes to mentoring? That everyday progression as always improving as a leader. So from a leadership standpoint, when we mentor somebody, it's going to be looking out into the future. Where do we see ourselves? Where do we see them? Because as we coach and as we mentor, we're growing as well, right? And that's one thing we don't want to forget, is that regardless if we're coaching somebody or mentoring somebody, we want to make sure that we're growing as well, right? Because the reality is we could teach somebody to pass us, and then we're no good to them because they're actually smarter or more knowledgeable because they've passed us through that time. So we want to continue to grow and provide, again, that opportunity for them to replace us. So as we go through today, just remember those two short descriptions. Is coaching is more of a short term, looking at the skill developments. Mentoring is more of a long term, that career pathing type process. Again, we want to look at what is going to make us better, right? When we coach somebody, what is going to make them better by us coaching them? And by us coaching an employee that it's underneath us, there's a lot of things that we can take away from that aspect of, right? Our program is going to shine because we're going to have good, well-developed employees that are positive, because when someone gets coached, they don't feel like they're in trouble. They don't feel like there's discipline. It's more of a, hey, I got support. I got somebody supporting me. I have somebody who's going to give me hands-on training, somebody who's really there to make me successful, right? And they feel that, they appreciate that, and they know the environment is there to learn. So you want to make sure that you look at the environment when you're coaching, that you always remember that you want to make sure that it's a positive environment and it's a continuous improvement of the benefit, right? So regardless of what topic that you're going over with an individual, you want to make sure that it's always a continuous improvement of the benefit that you're giving them or the skill that you're teaching them. So you want to make sure that the end goal for coaching is you want to develop over time a high performance employee that is going to be successful in their position, right? So that's common when it comes to coaching. So you might want to sit down and really understand the person that you're going to coach, so you can understand what unlocks their potential, right? And by understanding what unlocks their potential is going to provide you the opportunity to draw up a good plan for them to be successful. So over the next probably about 60 minutes, we're going to go over coaching and mentoring. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the areas that you can use that you can implement immediately into your job to help employees, right? So this is a good start to a great series. A little bit about myself, just to run through. I'm a retired 32-year public safety official. I had the opportunity 32 years ago to start as a frontline police officer with the Seminole Tribe of Florida. And through my career, the tribe provided opportunities for me not only to learn about the tribe and the community and the culture, but help along the way build individuals up to become leaders that replaced me, right? That gave me the opportunity to create succession plans, provided that opportunity for me to go to a lot of the great training arenas that are around the country. I had the support of not only the tribe, but the staff, right? You have the support of the staff that really make the environment worthwhile to always succeed, right? You want a learning organization, and that's the environment that I was fortunate enough to be in, that the learning environment helped my leadership growth. So I've had the opportunity to manage an organization that came from basically the growth area to now a really good dynamic public safety organization that has just under 500 employees and that handles 10 different geographical locations around the state of Florida. So that opportunity has really propelled me to really where I sit here today with my master's and my bachelor's and my doctorate degree in criminal justice, and to be able to share those lifelong experiences of leadership that I'm able to provide with you today and through this series. I will tell you from a leadership standpoint that I share this with you today, and I'm learning from you just as you're learning from me. But I will also share with you is that I've made a lot of mistakes throughout my leadership journey, right? So don't be afraid to make mistakes as you travel and navigate this and navigate your leadership portfolio. Mistakes are part of the process. And if we're coaching somebody or mentoring somebody, or if we're getting coached and mentoring ourselves, you're going to make mistakes. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, right? You should be afraid of not changing whatever caused those mistakes, right? So if you want to be afraid of something, let that fear drive you into making the mistake, but also learning and improving yourself, right? And the reality is sometimes people say, well, if I make a mistake, I'm going to, my boss is going to take it out on me, or something's going to happen to me. Well, the reality is that if that's the type of environment, my always view of that has always been that maybe you're not meant to be in that environment for you to be successful, right? So a good environment for leadership is about growth. And in order for you to grow, you have to make those mistakes. You have to go through that adversity and those challenges in life to learn through that process. And I was able to do that throughout my career, and I appreciate and I'm honored to be here with you throughout this journey. A little bit about Native Peacekeeper Consulting Group. It's a family-owned business. It is a SBA certified Seminole Native woman-owned organization. It's really a family-run business that we have. Consultants throughout the country. We have 4 of our kids that are consultants that are into public safety or the arena to deliver public safety information in regards to housing issues or mental health issues. So we go around the country just teaching and providing that opportunity. It's owned by our primary owner is Amy Latchford. She's a member of the Seminole Tribe of Florida of the Otter Clan, and her philosophy is to give back. Really, it's about empowering organizations. We want to give back through that process of just improving organizations, improving leaders, to give back and to raise that level of professionalism in every community that we touch. So her philosophy is that we make sure that regardless of where we go, we would just want to improve individuals. We want to improve the environments that we work in. And through our knowledge and our skills that we've learned throughout the career, through all our consultants, we want to share that and give back to the community. As we go today, there shouldn't be any big issues with this, but your policies, regardless of what organization you work for, is very important. So if I say something to you that in this presentation that may conflict with your policies, please go back to your policies, follow your policies. I don't necessarily talk about policies directly in this, but what I do is I share some information. If it does cross over or it conflicts with your policy, follow your policies. We want to make sure that your professional career is successful, and the organization that you work for now is the policies that you have to follow. So please follow your policies. Go back to talk about it. You may bring something back if that circumstance does happen. You may go back to your organization and you may be able to improve your policy, right? That's what we do as leaders, is we always evaluate, we always try to improve how we do things to make it better for our customers. Because if I can be a good leader to my employees and my employees recognize that I'm a good leader, they're going to take heed to that, and their interpersonal skills and their process and even their leadership as an informal leader, as a representative of the organization, is going to take that out into the community. So it's a reciprocal cycle that we push down to the lowest level that our leadership should transgress all the way down to the community that we serve. So again, if I say something that is conflicting to you, it's not intentional, but please follow your policy, because I want you to be successful in your organization. So as we look at the power of partnership, that's what coaching is, right? Coaching is a fundamental based theory of partnership. This isn't just about the theory of coaching. It's really about being practical. It's really about making sure that how do we take those theories that people have done the research on, and how do we implement them to be practical? So we want to give those employees the support. We want to challenge the opportunity for them to grow. And that's really what it is, right? You want to take somebody at the level that they're at and bring them to the next level, or a couple of levels above where they're at, depending on how fast they learn and how well you're coaching them, right? But it's really about a partnership. It's not a one-way street. It's not you tell, they listen. It's a partnership that you have to grow and build that trust relationship with them to really be effective, right? And it's an essential piece of your leadership style to ensure that you do have that progression of trust, right? Your leadership style has to have a piece in it that people trust you in order for you to coach them, right? And then you build that partnership so it makes the environment more successful for you, and more easy for both of you to navigate whatever issues and whatever challenges that you may be facing. So we want to make sure that that partnership's lasting, and it's not just a one-off. It's not a one-off. It's just not one-off as far as, one specific topic. It should be a progression every day, knowing that that support is always there. It's a partnership-based coaching relationship. What would you expect, or what should you expect from this course? Well, we're going to go over basically what coaching is. We talked a little bit about it. We're going to look at a practical toolkit that you can use. And again, we're going to look at some models that are out there that you can use, and you can kind of decide which model works for you in your experience and in your environment. And I will tell you that not one model is a square peg, square hole, right? Leadership is about always evolving, and not everything works for everybody. So as a leader, I will tell you, I dealt with people some way, and then other people I couldn't deal with that way. So I'd had to change the way I was leading, change the way my delivery was. And as you go through and understanding what coaching is, you want to make sure that when you provide that application of coaching, that not only is the message that you're providing your person that you're coaching important, right? And listen to the words here. It's not only the message that you're providing to your student or your employee, it's how you deliver that message is equally as important, right? So it's equally as important the delivery versus the subject matter that you're trying to coach on, right? Because if you have a great subject matter that they need to learn and you have a horrible delivery, they're not going to get it, right? And they're not going to get it because of your delivery. So we want to talk about, and we want to recognize how we can deploy those different directions and those different service deliveries to our employees, right? We're going to talk about developing core coaching skills. We want to demonstrate what effective behavior is when we are a coach. And then we want to recognize the strengths and how do we get feedback when it comes to when we're coaching somebody. We want to look at some of the toolkits like I talked about earlier that specialize within coaching from a leadership practice, right? So you have to compartmentalize your brain when it comes to leadership, right? Because there's times when you don't necessarily can coach because you're in the middle of a crisis and you don't have time to hold somebody's hand or really take the time to communicate in the whole totality. So you're in crisis. So you have to learn to compartmentalize the facts of, am I coaching? Am I mentoring? Am I disciplining? Is this an accountability session? Or is it one of those areas where we're in crisis and it's more of a directive method where, as a leader, I have a lot of things going on during a crisis event that's happening, and it's everything's top down driven, and you're giving orders, you're giving directives, and the employees have to go out and accomplish those tasks. So as a leader, you want to recognize when you can coach and when you can't coach. And that's what we'll talk about today on exactly when you can implement those coaching models and when you should go back to, this is a training module. It's not necessarily coaching. It's more of a training module that's going to change behavior. This is something that's going to be more of a discipline issue, right? So you'll hopefully walk away today and through this series with some tools that can help compartmentalize those leadership strategies. So when we look at coaching and mentoring, and we want to understand the distinction, right? So we talked about earlier, coaching is performance focused, right? We want to make sure that it's performance focused, that the task and the skills are oriented into the everyday delivery of your employees. So when we look at the leadership, when it comes to coaching, what those tasks are, what those skills-oriented pieces are, that's important because we can sit and coach somebody how to talk to somebody, right? Just as simple as answering your phone in your housing arena, right? I would go along the lines and going around the country, I ask this questions to a lot of housing authorities, not only in tribal lands, but outside in the outside organizational world, is that do you give a policy, or do you have a policy, or do you give training on how to answer phones, right? So does the person who answers the phones for you, have they been trained on what to say? Have they been trained on how to talk to the public and really navigate those calls, really to get people to provide that customer service, right? And customer service, everybody wants to have customer service. The goal, though, as a leader, is to provide a high level of customer service to the people that we encounter. So you want to look at those small tasks and skills. It's often, again, in short term. It's a structured process where you can sit down, you can take the time, you can kind of hold their hand through whatever that area is. And coaches may not be the subject matter expert, right? You may not be the subject matter expert when you're coaching them, but you know enough to where you can progress them along for them to develop, right? When we look at mentoring, it's more career focused. It's where do they want to be? Where do they see themselves in 3 years? Where do they see themselves in 5 years, right? It's relationship oriented, right? It's something that I have 100% trust in my mentor. I can share everything with them, and even the hard times, right? How do I get to A to B, and then when I'm at B, how can I get through C, D, E, and F, right? And what are those things do I have to do, right? And again, it's usually long term. It's a less structured process. It's more of just when I'm feeling that moment to where I need to talk to somebody, or the mentor goes and says, hey, how you doing? Tell me about what's going on with yourself, right? And I haven't seen you in a couple weeks, right? Mentors are typically the experts, right? They're really the people that have been in the positions. They know the information. The experience they have are more relevant for the long-term goal. So while we'll focus primarily on coaching throughout the webinar today, just understand there's a difference between the developmental styles and approaches from coaching and mentoring, but you need to understand that both of them can work to your advantage. Both coaching and mentoring can really help you succeed and develop people that are below you to really be successful. So when we look at the business case for coaching, right? When individuals start for your company, again, like I talked about earlier, they're green. They don't know anything. They're coming into an environment. They've said all the right things in interviews, and they're happy to be there. And you're happy to fill a position. You're happy that they're part of the entire process, and they made it to where they're at. But the reality is that's the start of something that really can turn into a great opportunity for the future, or it could be a disaster for your organization. And that really depends on how well you lead. And so when we look at, if you're going to use the coaching style and the coaching model, is how well is your organization? Does it have a strong coaching style that employees can develop from? When they come through the door, are they told by the person, this is the way we do it here, don't ask questions, this is how we've done it for so long, and I don't know why we do it, but this is how we do it, right? Is that the type of environment they're coming in, and is that being passed along to the new employees, right? So as a leader, if you're in those positions, the great part about that, you have the opportunity to affect positive change within your organization. So you want to look at things as far as how well is the performance improvement within your organization, and as a coaching style, how well is the coaching style at the level of from a frontline manager all the way up to the executive of the program, right? The return on investment, is it positive, right? We all have been involved in organizations where sometimes more people have the revolving door. They come in, maybe they're not a good fit. They said all the right things on an interview panel, and then they come into the organization and they're only there a short time, right? What's the return on investment? Are you losing people because they're getting bad coaching? There's individuals that are nice people, but they're not really good coaches, right? So you want to evaluate that from one, internally, and also if you're an executive on the webinar, you want to take a candid look at your management style all the way down to the lowest level supervisor to see what type of person is coaching them, right? Sometimes a leader is a good leader, but they don't know how to coach. They're more of the book type person where they can sit at a different level and they can write policies. They write really well, but they're not necessarily that person that can sit down and coach and mentor somebody. So you want to make sure you're strategic when you look at your business style or your organizations and your programs to see what the return on investment is. What type of coaching can be implemented? What coaching do you have that's happening now? And you also want to look at, if you have people leaving, why are they leaving, right? Sometimes people aren't a good fit. I recognize the fact that they're not a good fit in organizations, and they don't need to be there, right? Either by their choice or by your choice. Sometimes you have to release people just because they're not going to be a good fit. They're not going to be successful there. They may have done great in the interview, but that's the interview, right? Now, when it comes to boots on the ground and carrying out the expectations, that's where you want to look at, okay, are they a good fit? And if they're a good fit, how well can they be coached? So I would tell you, return on investment, one of the questions in your interviews, you want to ask the individuals, let them explain to you, when's the last time they were coached and how do they take that feedback from the coach, and let them give you examples of when that happened. Have them give you examples of circumstances that maybe they were coached and they didn't agree with the topic they were being coached on, and how they dealt with it, right? And put that in the front end of your interview process, because you may be able to identify that somebody isn't going to be a good fit within your organization. All right, so you have the opportunity to take some of these leadership styles and move it to the front end of your organizations if you're not doing it currently. You want to look at turnover again. You want to look at coaching as a recruiting type benefit when you do the interviews, but also retaining, right? You want to retain employees. You want to decrease the turnovers. Coaching isn't just about benefiting the individual. It's about benefiting the organization. It's about benefiting the community that you serve. And at the end of the day, when you look at how you coach and the decision process that you're using, it should always be the community first, the organization second, and the employees third, right? That's what leadership does. The end result is taking care of the community. Look at how it's going to affect the community, look at how it's going to affect your organization, and then look at how it's going to affect the employees that you're coaching, because that's an important piece. Because if you're doing a bad job coaching your employees, they're then going out into the community, and that bad coaching is going to live through your employees. So you want to make sure that your coaching style from a business standpoint is always evaluated, and it's consistent, and it's always looking at success as the development. When should we coach and when should we recognize those opportunities, right? Skill development is the best time to put things into play as far as coaching. A lot of times, just on the basic skills, managers or leaders will go right to discipline, or they'll go right to the fact of holding somebody accountable in an aspect of it doesn't have to go that far. It just may be that person may not have the training that they needed. It may be something to where they're having a bad day. Again, these aren't excuses where I'm sticking up for employees. As leaders, we just have to recognize, when can we implement the coaching process in lieu of retraining, in lieu of discipline, in lieu of any other encounter up to termination, right? So we want to make sure team members have the philosophy where they could have the feeling and know they're in an environment where they can be built upon, right? You can take new and refine areas and help them become better employees to meet the performance expectations. So again, skill development. Performance gaps, when there's a noticeable difference between current performance and potential of expectations. I've had a lot of people in my career that have done great things. And then I have other people in my career that I've witnessed and I've had challenges with, like we all have, is that they can do more, right? Their potential, they haven't reached their potential. They're kind of, I would say, retired on duty, right? They're not at their potential, but they've been allowed to do that. They've been allowed to be at an area where they can just be retired on duty. They don't cause any problems. They just come in and they check all the boxes, but they're not meeting their performance potential or even their personal potential or expectations, right? So that's an area where you can use coaching. Career advancement, right? A lot of people, and I'm a strong believer in people don't want to stay stagnant. They get to the point where they get in their little huddle or their little comfort zone because they don't want to deal with the adversity. The environment may be toxic. So they get to a point where they're kind of quiet until somebody looks at them or somebody sees them or they have to step out of it, right? So career advancement, always look at people want to advance their career. They always want new responsibilities. They want to feel part of a team. People want to be part of the team. And the reality is when they step back, it's because something happened or the environment is not necessarily where it should be. Remember, when people come to work for us or individuals come to work for my team, right? They're coming because they chose to come, right? So they're most of the time they're positive. If they're not positive and they come to my team, then I don't know why we hired them, right? They shouldn't have been hired if they're not positive to come to the team. So you want to try and always keep that positivity without being the doormat for them, right? It doesn't mean they know everything. You still have to coach them, teach them, mentor them, hold them accountable. But if they know the environment, they know the organizational culture, you're going to be able to coach them for their career advancement, right? And then change management, right? Coaching is difficult when it comes to the organizational transitions, right? But you have the opportunity to use coaching to work up to a big change that may be happening within your organization. I'm a big believer that people don't like change, and sometimes they don't like the way it is. And the reality is it's not because they're bad people. The reality is it's the fear of what is going to take me out of my comfort zone. That fear of what my change of my daily life, right? A lot of times our employees come in and they do the same thing monotonous every day, and we get in that rut. And then when something changes, we have the anxiety, right? Because we don't know what that future looks like if we have to try something new. We don't know what that future looks like if I fail, right? I don't want to get my head yelled at or chopped off if I fail. The reality is you're going to fail, right? But if you understand and you can accept that I'm going to fail, but the reality is it's not about the failure. It's about how can I change to make things better. And if I have leadership and I have coaches that are willing to coach me up when I'm down and through that change, that's what I want. I want that great leader who can sit and recognize the fact that, you know what, they understand where I'm at. They're supporting me, and I'm willing to do whatever I can to make myself successful, make them successful as my leader, and make the organization successful. And if all three of us are successful, the community is going to be taken care of. When not to use coaching. It's another important topic that we want to make sure that we recognize and we have in our tool chest, because when you're in a crisis, you don't want to use coaching. Again, those immediate actions that are required, you do not want to use the coaching philosophy, right? Usually during crisis, you're direct, you give direct instructions, and you don't have time to hold somebody's hand, right? Sometimes the fundamental gaps, when a person lacks the basic knowledge needed to perform their role, right? Training might be more suitable. So you want to look at, okay, is coaching going to be beneficial here? Or do I need to send them off to a class? Do I need to put them back into remedial training because they just don't have that knowledge and that skill? They don't even retain the basic knowledge. So you want to make sure that you recognize that you don't use coaching during those circumstances. When not to coach, unwillingness to participate. Sometimes you'll have individuals who never were on sports teams. They don't understand what it means to be a coach, or they just clearly are resistant because of personality problems or stuff going on in their home. You don't want to use the coaching process for that, right? You need to recognize that as a leader. Personal issues beyond the workplace. A lot of times And it goes both ways. A lot of times you bring work home, but also when you look at coaching, people bring their personal life into work, and sometimes that requires a deeper coach to deal with those issues. And your HR would have support EPA programs that could help them out. But from a leadership standpoint, you need to know those and which way to guide them so you can help them through their challenge. But you certainly don't want to coach when somebody comes into work and they have personal problems that are going on that are really outside of your job description, outside of your expertise. You don't want to put yourself in the position of that. Help guide them to that professional support that they need. Core qualities of an effective coach. You want to make sure that you know how to actively listen. I'm a big believer right now in society. What's happening is, and social media is driving some of this, is that I believe that we all at times, and some more than others, our listening skills are listening to respond, not listening to understand, right? So I'll say it again, is that as a coach, we have to recognize, in order for us to be effective, we have to recognize when people are listening to respond or are they listening to understand our message, right? And a lot of times, if you have children or if you're close to other individuals, you can kind of pick up if somebody's listening to respond or they're listening really to understand what you're saying, because that answer is coming out as soon as you stop talking, right? Or you can see that brain, moving in behind their eyes. You can see that brain working for what you're saying. And we've all been the reciprocal of that. I can tell you, I've been on the other side of where I hear somebody talking and I'm already thinking about, okay, this is how I'm going to respond. Well, the reality is when I think that way, I'm missing the message. I'm not hearing the full potential from that person who's talking to me. From either if it's at work or if it's at home with your family, you're not hearing that full message. You're hearing parts of it, but because your brain is starting to work the answer and that response, right? So learn how to put yourself in a position to be a better listener. There are times where you are going to, as a boss, you're going to listen and then you're going to respond, immediately. But try to listen as a coach when you're in that coaching aspect and you want to be a good coach and you have that coach's hat on. Listen to understand what they're saying. They may not require an answer. They may just need to get it out and say it out loud without you giving them an answer. And that would help them even more than you even giving them an answer, is just let them say it out loud without providing the answer to them or even giving them a comment, right? So that's the piece that you want to look at to become an effective coach. You want to look at powerful questioning, using thought-provoking questions that challenge the assumptions and promote deeper reflection, right? And by listening to understand, this goes hand in hand with the powerful questioning, because it gives you the opportunity to let what they're saying sink in as their coach, right? So you can look deeper, you can look past the emotion that's coming out of them, because a lot of times the emotion is coming out first, right? So if you're listening to understand, it provides you the opportunity to really dig down deep to determine what that thought-provoking question is going to be to them, to challenge what they're saying, to really get that self-reflection. You want to build trust, right? You want to make sure as that effective coach that you can create that psychological safety for them. Let them know that you're reliable, that you're consistent with them, and you're going to be consistent with them. But also, which is very important, that if this is confidential, it's between you and I. It's for personal growth, professional growth. We want to make you successful, and you want to build that trust, right? So you want to make sure that as a coach, to be effective, that you can have that opportunity to build trust for them. Constructive feedback, right? When you talk to somebody and you provide them feedback, how are you doing it? Are you doing it from an aspect where you're making them feel belittled, right? We are all guilty at that at times where it just comes out the wrong way and we wish we could just pull it back, right? So you want to make sure that your feedback is clear. You want to make sure it's specific to what you're observing to help the coachee grow, right? You want to help the person that you're coaching grow. So you want to make sure you provide clear feedback and be specific. Here's one that I have had problems with in the beginning of my career is patience, right? I'm a fast mover. I like to just continue to keep things moving. Patience is important when you're coaching. I learned this when I was coaching travel baseball and my son's baseball and football teams, is that, patience is important for people because not everybody processes things at your level, right? So you have to self-reflect to make sure that you are providing them the opportunity to be patient with them and let them process it at their level, not at your level. So recognize the fact that patience is important. You want to make sure through your coaching aspect of them that you're giving them the opportunity to take the time so they can develop on their time and they can maintain their composure as they go through and navigate the challenge. Coaching mindset for success. This is the foundation that I observe that I think is important for success. Sir John Whitmore, I think he put it great when he said, coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. It's helping them to learn rather than teach them, right? So you're coaching them, you're not teaching them. It's giving them the opportunity to also find the answers without you just giving them the book to say, okay, here's the answer. Let them learn and learn it by you coaching them, you supporting them through the process. So some essential beliefs of effective coaching is people have inherent potential for growth. I believe people want to grow. Individuals always want to develop. They want to become smarter. The process is when we coach, are we creating that environment for them? They possess the solution. I'm a big believer. We already have the answer inside of us. They have the answer inside of him. Sometimes we just need somebody to help us knock that wall down or turn that page or find that book, to where we can read the book and we can find the solution. So we want to make sure that we provide that opportunity when we coach to be effective, that we recognize the fact that these individuals that we're coaching, they have the answers. They're very smart. The human person is very smart and intelligent, right? Again, coaching is a partnership. It's not a directiveship or a direct leadership, right? Questions are more powerful than statements, right? A lot of times statements are just, they fall flat and the coachee kind of loses interest, right? Keep the questions, ask them questions, let them talk about themselves. When people talk about themselves, when somebody asks them questions and they're talking about themselves, they get more out of it because they're hearing themselves talk. And it's positive, right? So sometimes that talk, that negative becomes a positive because they see the solution as they're talking, right? Successful coaching focuses on the future. Stay away from talking about the past, right? Sometimes you'll fall into that trap and you say, 3 weeks ago, you did the same thing. Forget about 3 weeks ago. Look for the future. Look for building them up. Look for pulling them out of the weeds so they can be successful in the position that they currently hold and the direction that they want to go. Developing a coaching mindset requires moving away from the traditional directive leadership approach towards a more facilitative style, right? The shift is often the most challenging aspect of becoming an effective coach, but it's also transformative. So this is a small microcosm of bigger leadership. Your leadership is you want to be transformative. You always want to be progressive, right? So you want to get away and try to get away from always using the directive leadership style and move more to of a facilitative style. And I will tell you, my career, in the beginning of my career and as a leader, it was more directive. It was more directive because we had a lot of people that were growing into their career and they just didn't know, and we didn't have the resources, right? So beginning of my career, I was more directive. Over time, I had to recognize and be taught and coached that, facilitative style is going to be more beneficial. That transformation style of leadership is really what it's about. And so I've developed into that. And sometimes every once in a while, I'll go back to that directive leadership. And sometimes that's needed. I will tell you, sometimes the directive style is needed, but you want to be able to recognize those layers of leadership that can help you and put that in your leadership toolbox so you know when to bring it out. Self-assessment is very big on coaching strengths. So I want you to take a moment and just kind of think to yourself as I read through these, kind of do a self-reflecting for yourself. You're not going to share this with anybody. You can write it down on the sheet of paper, and you can go back to it. And this is something you can use. You can pull out any day and just go through it to kind of judge yourself, evaluate yourself, and just that self-improvement of becoming a better coach, right? So if you had to scale yourself between 1 and 5, 1 meaning you need significant development, and 5, you're consistently have a good understanding and strength of the area, how would you rate yourself, right? So active listening, right? How well do you fully focus on others without formulating responses while they speak, right? If you had to judge yourself and write down right now what that number would be, or where you see yourself within 1 and 5, what would it be, right? How well do you fully focus on others without formulating responses while they speak? Or do you just listen to try to understand, right? How do you judge yourself on that? Questioning skills. How effective do you use open-ended questions that promote self-discovery, right? Given the opportunity for somebody to recognize the answer themselves without giving it to them. And this is challenging because we're living in a world that kids are taking tests to pass the test, not to retain the information. We're hoping they retain the information, but because of the world and society's moving so fast, I'm a believer that what happens is people they want that end result, they want that answer, they want that test answer, and so retaining the information isn't as important as passing that test, right? So when it comes to your questioning skills as a coach and as a leader, how effective are you when you use open-ended questions to promote self-discovery, to let that other person find the answer themselves, or have that light bulb go off to say, hey, you know what? I got this. I know the answer. They don't even have to tell me. I know it. And then they come out with it. So how do you rate yourself 1 to 5? Providing feedback. How comfortable are you giving constructive feedback, right? You could walk into a room and just say hello to somebody and walk right, continue to walk past, right? Or are you that type of person to stop and say, after you say hello, you take a couple of steps and you turn back around and you say, how are you doing? How's your family doing, right? It's easy to say hello to somebody, but are you digging into a deeper conversation? Same thing when it comes to providing feedback. Are you just breaking them down without building them up? How are you delivering that feedback? Are they open to the delivery just as important as the feedback that you provided? Like I indicated earlier, providing that feedback is just as important as the delivery of that feedback. So how would you rate yourself from a 1 to 5? Where do you see yourself when you look at those areas? Again, patience. How well do you allow others to find their own solutions without jumping in? I will tell you that's difficult as a leader, especially when you're moving in an environment that moves so fast that you just want to, because you're at your level, you're in 5th gear, right? There are a lot of people only operate in 3rd gear. So are you patient? Do you sit back and even though you may know the answer, do you sit back and let somebody else, or let that person that you're coaching or supervising find that solution themselves, right? And a good way to do that is when somebody brings you a problem, instead of giving them the answer, you can ask them follow-up questions like, what do you think we should do with this, right? Or what areas what suggestions do you have that can make this problem better, or to solve this problem, right? And that will help you digress some of your patience. It'll bring you back a little bit. Instead of just throwing out the answer to them and giving the answer, you can throw a question at them and let them provide the answer, and that'll kind of help you step back. And that's what I used. That's what I used to help myself, because if I had to rate myself on this one, I used to be about a 2, right? So now I'm about a 4. Right. So, but I use that theory of, instead of, I got to tell myself, ask the question so I could step back. Even though I know the answer, let me ask the question so they can answer it and they can learn, and we can learn together. So again, 1 to 5 on your patience. Identifying development areas. After completing your self-assessment, it's important to identify specific areas for your own coaching development. Again, you can use this as something that can help you as you progress through your coaching style. Research shows your focused improvements, just one or two areas, yield better results than trying to develop all skills simultaneously, right? So skill gap analysis, you want to identify 1 to 2 coaching competencies with the lowest scores from your self-assessment. So we went through 5, pick 2 of them, right? And focus on 2 of them to make yourself a better coach, right? Pick 2 of them, get yourself to where you can raise that number up, train yourself and learn new attributes of those topics. And then when you feel comfortable that those 2 are at the level they need to be, you can pick 2 more, right? You want to look at feedback collection. You want to ask trusted colleagues or team members for specific feedback on your coaching, right? This is a hard pill to swallow because we don't like to be told our negative, right? So and especially as a leader, we have it in our mindset, we have it in our mindset that we're the leader. People shouldn't tell us when we're wrong or what we do. Sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need that. You need people, confidants that are in your circle that you could sit and have a conversation with that are going to tell you, hey, you know what? This probably isn't the right way to do this. Or, hey, just to give you some feedback, I watched this happen the other day. I watched how you talked to that employee, and you probably could have done it better than that. You didn't get your message across as strong as you did because of the way you delivered it, right? So you want those people to tell you when you're not necessarily doing things so right, so you can correct it. So when you're coaching somebody, you can do the same thing, right? So you want to make sure it's a two-way street, again, a partnership. Develop planning, create a specific action plan to strengthen your identified development areas. Sit down, and a lot of times if we sit down and we write an action plan out for us, it helps us. It's documented. We can always go back to it. We can evaluate it, and we can see that significant change that we make when it comes to how we're coaching. Let's talk a little bit about the GROW coaching model, right? One of the most widely used and effective coaching frameworks is the GROW model. It's the goal, reality, options, and the way forward, or the will, right? This structure helps maintain focus and progress during coaching conversations. If you can take this and implement it into your process, it will be really dynamic for you. The goals, they establish what coaches want to achieve, ensuring the goal is specific and meaningful. Reality is explore the current situation, challenges, and context surrounding what the goal is. Options generate possible approaches, strategies, or solutions to achieve the goal. And again, the way forward, or the will, not this will, the way forward, or the will for the actually coaching model, is determine specific actions, timeframes, and then those accountability measures that you want to implement. So when you look at goal setting in the GROW model, right, it's important that to be effective, there's some effective goal questioning, right? What specifically do you want to achieve, right? What do you want to achieve with the goal that you have? How will you know when you reach that goal, right? You want to understand what, as the coach, how would you know when that goal is reached? How does this goal align with your broader objective? And what would success look like? So if someone had to ask you today to evaluate your boss, from the circumstances of just evaluating your boss, and they said, tell us what your boss equals success. How should your boss look if they were successful? Give me the attributes of what success looks like for that position above you. Again, I don't want you to share that with me, but I just posed that question to you because it's important. What does success look like? A lot of times we throw things out and we don't necessarily think of that end result. In this particular case, as a leader, specifically as a coach, you want to look at and you want to know what success looks like. Because if you understand what success looks like, then that'll help you reach. It'll help you reach that goal. And when do you want to achieve it, right? You want to have a timeline when you look at the GROW model. The goal phase establishes a clear destination for coaching journey. So when you sit down with your coachee, you want to make sure that you can go through these, you can answer those questions, right? Effective goals in coaching should follow the SMART criteria: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. but also need to be personally meaningful and motivating for the coachee, right? So you can do all this behind the scenes, but you want to make sure your coachee understands all this as well, right? The person you're coaching, you want to make sure that they understand what your end goal is, what you're trying to accomplish. Show them how it benefits them. Show them how by you coaching them, you're going to bring them to the next level. And this is how you're doing it through the GROW model. And here's how you're going to be effective. You're going to be specific on what you want to achieve, and you're going to help them achieve that. And you can ask them, what do they want to achieve? What specifics do they want to achieve? And you can go through every one of these questions with your coachee, and will help you become a better coach, and it'll help you as you're coaching them. Research has shown that goals with emotional significance generate 70% higher commitment levels than purely rational objectives. Again, get their buy-in. Have them be part of the process. It's important for you as you go through any model that you use, if it's the GROW model or the other ones we're going to talk about, you want to make sure that they get the buy-in and they feel that, this is exciting. It's exciting that I'm going to learn this. I have somebody who's supporting me, somebody who's behind me, and it's okay that if I screw up, I know that person's going to help me out of whatever I need, and they're going to get me to where I'm going, right? And always remain positive. Reality assessments of GROW, you want to look at those assessment speeds, right? So you want to have an analysis of what the current situation is. Effective reality questions help you help the coachee assess their current circumstance without judgment or assumptions. When you're coaching, you cannot display judgment or assumptions, right? You want to make sure that you stay away from any judgment or assumptions when it comes to coaching. You may be able to use them during disciplinary phases or accountability phases, but coaching, it's all about being positive. It's all about making sure the environment is right for them. So some sample questions are, what's happening right now regarding this situation? What steps have you taken so far? What obstacles are currently in your way? Who else is involved, and what's their perspectives? What resources do you currently assess to? All those questions, as you could see, it's related for them to answer from their point of view, not yours, right? So you want to make sure from a reality standpoint, let them ask them questions and let them answer it from their point of view, not your assumption, not your judgment. This helps identify any barriers that may be in the way. It gives you the opportunity to look at unexamined assumptions that they may have, and overlooked resources might impact goal achievement, right? So it may expose some things that you're not aware of, right? So when you're coaching somebody, you want to be able to ask those questions through this grow process and this GROW model that can really break barriers and provide an opportunity for you to see the real environment of the employee. Now, I share this with you is because this is sometimes very brain impactful for you as the coach, right? Because it takes you to sit down. You're already dealing with a lot of crisis during the day. It takes you to sit down and really use brain power, right? But I can't challenge you enough. Use the brain power now before you lose the employee. Use the brain power now before the employee does something that is going to hurt the overall program. Take the time, slow the crisis down, and put yourself in a position to be a good coach. Options for exploration in the GROW model, you want to create a solution mindset. It's about generating possibilities rather than immediately evaluating them, right? So you want to generate possibilities that could happen. Research shows that separating idea generation from idea evaluation produces 118% more viable solutions, right? Just don't jump to the solution or have them jump to the solution. Talk about it. Is there anything else that you can bring out, or is there any other options that you have here? I know there's some schools out there that teach 3 different ways to solve a problem, right? That's what you want to do in this particular case. You want to be in that position where you're coaching somebody. You want to bring out more than one solution for the same particular problem. Powerful option questions would be, what's possible? What other possible approaches could you take? What would you do if resources were unlimited? What would someone you admire do in this situation? Let me go back to what would you do if resources are unlimited? Every one of you probably on this webinar are in a position where your resources are limited or you're at your ceiling when it comes to resources. If you had to write down 20 things right now, again, I'm not asking you to provide it to me. I just want you to think about it, is that what would you do if the resources were unlimited to you? If you had to implement unlimited resources to you right now, how would your program look? How would your employees act, right? Would it be the same process your employees have? Really, what does that look like? Describe that picture in your mind. And have you ever asked yourself, we always talk about being short of resources. If we had all these resources, what would we do, right? And sometimes we lose that as leaders. So that's a good question for us to always keep in the back of our head. What would we do as leaders if resources were unlimited? How would we use that? What have you seen work in similar situations is another one. If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you try? It's a big question right there because we're all afraid to fail, right? I will tell you, I fail every day. I failed today, and I'm going to fail this afternoon, and I'm going to fail tomorrow. Because when I fail, I'm challenging myself through that adversity to make myself better. And that's what I want of all of you. I want you to embrace failure through this process of coaching, right? Because if you can coach somebody and be effective, that starts with you as the coach understanding that you can fail. It's okay to fail. What's not okay is to not do anything about that fail. You want to take that fail, use that adversity, wrap it up into a nice bow to where you're successful, and that failure has become a success story for you. And what haven't you considered yet? That's another powerful question you can use through this process. The will and the way forward on the GROW model. Create an action plan. Again, a strategic plan is something that I'm sure you all are familiar with. An action plan, what you're doing, when you're doing it, what does the future look like? Is there any obstacles that are coming your way, right? What are those support structures? Determine the resources or assistance that you need while you're coaching somebody, and that commitment or confirmation. Verify the willingness and confidence to follow through on the agreed action plan, right? So when you do the GROW model with your coachee, you want to make sure that they have a buy-in to it, that their willingness to see that investment that you're putting into them, that they automatically see, you know what, this person's invested in me. I owe it to them to invest in myself, and I owe it to them to invest in this circumstances. The will and the way forward. Face transform insights into action. Studies show that implementation intentions, if X happens, I will do Y. Increase follow through by about 300%, right? So if you get the buy-in, you figure that studies have been proven. Once you get the buy-in and you say X, the coachee is going to do Y at a 300% compared to just the basics that they're going to do. So there is historical data that shows this model works. Eugenia, you have a question. Do you want to type it in the chat? All right, Eugenia, if you want to type your question in the chat, it shows you raised your hand. I'll answer it when you type it in the chat. All right, we'll move forward. The GROW model again in practice. This is just a sample dialogue, and for the sake of time, I'm just going to just touch base on it. This gives you an idea on how you can use the GROW model. Some phrases that you can use when it comes to different circumstances. I provided the goal, the option, the reality, and the will and the way. Right. So, kind of gives you what specific would you like to focus on today. The coachee may say, I'd like to improve my presentation skills for upcoming client meeting next month, right? The reality is, the option is the reality is how would you rate your current presentation skills? That's what you're going to ask. I'm comfortable with the content, but I'm very nervous to speak and speak too quickly. The option from a coach, you're going to say, what approaches could you help manage your nervousness? The coachee may say, I could practice more, record myself, or perhaps join Toastmasters. And the will of the way is the coach. Which of these will you commit to doing before our next session, right? The coachee, I'll practice my presentation 3 times a week and I'll record myself for review. So that's a really good analogy I put together to kind of show you how the GROW model works. And it gives you the opportunity, again, to see that you as the coach, all you're doing is asking questions. You're not giving answers. You're asking questions. You're allowing them to provide the solution and work towards becoming a better individual when it comes to the coaching. Some other models, as we talked about, that you can use other than the GROW model is the CLEAR model, which is more of a contract-based. If you want to set a contract, and some people like the everything written down, exactly what they're responsible for. I found that one to be a little bit more time-consuming because you're having to write the contract, and then some people are more black and white, so they stay within the contract boundaries, and they're not necessarily open to other areas if it's not in the contract. So you want to, it's good to use, and it could be used on certain individuals, but you want to evaluate that. And it does establish clear agreements and reviewing outcomes. So there is a positive to it. It's just something that you may you want to look at, to see what works for the individual person that you're dealing with. The Oscar model is a solution-focused approach built around the outcomes, the scale, the know-how, affirm or action review. Rather than digging into the problem, it keeps the conversation on what's already working, what strengths the employees can leverage, and small steps forward, right? So it kind of stays focused on what's working, doesn't necessarily take you in any other different direction than what's working, and you're looking at those small steps forward. So that may be something who an individual may be a little bit slower when it comes to progressing things. So the Oscar model may work for your favor using that one. The Achieve model, it provides structure. It's a step-by-step coaching flow. It covers the assess, creativity, brainstorming. It hashes out options. It integrates goals and evaluates choices. It verifies plans, and then it has the execution model. It's practical, it's analytical, and ideal when the employee needs help breaking a challenge down into clear, actionable stages. So it is an opportunity. That's another one to use. It's just whatever makes you more comfortable as a coach. I like the GROW model because it always puts the emphasis on the employee to come up with the answer instead of me always telling them what the answer is. And it also helps me, the GROW model helps me continuously on that path where I'm not just always giving answers. I'm helping somebody grow. And when we determine the answers and solutions, we take more ownership in ourselves. So that's why I like the GROW model, because it puts more on the employee. However, all 4 models are very productive if you know how to use them and you use them right. So the GROW model, again, is used widely throughout every industry. However, the other ones are used as well. It's just a matter on how versed you are and how well and really what works for that employee. We talked about active listening, the foundation of coaching. That's something that is important. The levels of listening are very important. You want to look at what's their thoughts, right? So when somebody is talking to you, what's going through their head, just don't listen to what they're saying. Try to figure out if there's anything deeper there as far as what's going on that can help you provide a better solution. Sometimes individuals are only giving you the piece of the story, but you'll get the feeling. We do it every day. You get the feeling there may be more information than what somebody's telling us, right? So you want to continue that internal listening. Focused listening is attention on speaking, but still thinking of a response. We talked about that. And then global listening is full presence, attending to the words, the tone, the body language, and an environment. You're really engaged in the person's discussion. You want to be effective, and to be an effective coach, you want to constantly operate at all 3 of these levels, right? Where they're fully present, absorbing all communication channels, right? So at level 3 is really the most successful But 1 and 2, you want to make sure that, you use them sparingly. But level 3 is really the level you want to be at when it comes to coaching. Barriers for active listening, again, thinking about your response. Sometimes you have outside noise, you have a distraction in the environment. Preconceived notions, right? We sometimes create our own answer or perception, and then when somebody's speaking to us, they have to break that down for us because we already think that we already know the answer, and we necessarily don't. But in our mind, we do. Emotional reaction to what's being said. Facial expressions are very important when you're coaching. You want to make sure you don't give off the wrong facial expression or an expression like you don't care what the person's saying, right? Again, it goes back to that trust. You want to make sure that they trust you and they're looking at you as somebody who is an individual they can count on when they need it. Time pressure, again, and rushing is important. Let them speak, give them the opportunity, make sure they don't feel rushed or they don't feel like you care. Because that's when you rush somebody, that's what they feel like they don't care about you. So you're just rushing them along. Active listening techniques, nonverbal engagement. Your eye contact is very important. Your facial expressions I just talked about. Paraphrasing, restate what you've heard in your own words to confirm the understanding. So what I'm hearing, you could say, you could start out. So what I'm hearing is this is what you're thinking, right? So paraphrase back what they say, and it confirms to them that you listen to them. Summarize, periodically condense multiple points into one key theme, right? Sometimes people don't know how to communicate, so you got to bring it together for them. And again, ask those clarifying questions. Could you tell me more about, something that you want them to elaborate more? Research shows that coaches who demonstrate these active listening behaviors, you establish 61% faster than those who don't, according to the study of International Coach Federation. So if you do the active listening, it's something that, and you do these techniques, it's going to help you help the person you're coaching. The art of powerful questioning, you always want to open versus closed questions. Closed questions, the answer yes or no are really the ones you want to stay away from. Open questions invite that exploration, the reflection. An example of an open end, or what factors contributed to your sales performance, is just an example where it's not a yes or no. Try to stay away from yes or no questions. It's important that you give the person the opportunity, and they get to give their viewpoint, right? That's what you want to know, is what their viewpoint is, so you can help them progress forward. When we look at some powerful questions, there's the perspective shifting questions, like how would you mentor or approach this situation? How might this look 5 years from now? Again, it's perspective. You're getting the person's perspective on things. Reflective questionings, what are you learning about yourself through this challenge? How does this situation reflect your values? And then forward-looking questions, what would success in this area make possible? And what's the first step you could take? Again, you're not asking those yes or no questions. You're asking questions to provoke a thought, to get their opinion, to get your coachee to speak out so you can provide a good foundation of leadership when it comes to your coaching style. Providing feedback, again, describe the specific behavior situation you observe without judging or interruption. You want to explain the effect, the consequences of the behavior. Focus on the results rather than the intention. And again, ask a reflective question about alternatives. And sometimes you ask the question. I learned through my career, instead of discipline somebody, I would ask somebody, if you were in my shoes, what do you think your discipline should be? Or what do you think that training I should send you to? What training courses should I send you to if you were in my position? Let them provide that feedback to you. Again, you want to make sure they also understand when you're coaching that you're a resource for them, you're there, and you're going to be balanced, right? Effective feedback is doing it timely, you're specific, you're balanced, and you're development oriented. This will impact them, and it'll provide an opportunity to be positive. It'll provide them the opportunity to know that you're there to support them as a coach. Ineffective versus effective feedback examples. Just go through a couple of these. Ineffective feedback, vague, your presentation skills need work. That tells us nothing when somebody tells us that, right? One-sided, only focusing on what went wrong. Again, you want to be balanced, right? Effective feedback. Here's a specific one. During your presentation, I noticed you spoke very quickly during the financial section. right? That's very specific. So you want to make sure all your feedback is effective. So this is a good slide you can always go back to throughout your coaching journey. Strength-based coaching approach. Again, traditional coaching often focuses on fixing weaknesses, but research shows that employees who use strengths daily are 8% more productive and 15% less likely to quit their jobs. If people identify that their coaches are strong for them, they're going to be committed to you, right? That's what this slide is. If you can identify the person's strengths and you see their strengths in them, they're going to appreciate the value that you're building in them. They're going to appreciate how you're aware of their performance, and they're going to work harder for you. They're going to be more strategic and deliberate when it comes to some of the challenges they may have, and they're going to continue to practice, and because they want to make you successful. They want to make you happy for them, even though don't do things to make people happy. Do things because it's the right way. So you don't want them to think, hey, let me just make them happy. No, by them working on themselves and you coaching them and them getting better at what they're doing, that's going to make them happy, not them just making you happy. You want to recognize, again, their strengths. Just went over that one. It's important that you look at their techniques. You look at kind of how their language is, and recognize their accomplishments, right? Let them know you appreciate them, even when they don't think they did anything up and above, right? Let them know you appreciate them, right? Give them that motivation to let them know and build that person up to where they know they're a valued employee of the organization. Coaching through resistance. You want to recognize any type of resistance. This is a little difficult because sometimes you'll get somebody who's resistant to change or resistant to coaching. So you got to work at that. It's going to cause you a little bit of challenge, but embrace that challenge. Embrace that challenge to coach through resistance. You want to understand what the resistance is. You want to acknowledge the legitimacy of it, right? You want to say, I can understand why you might feel uncomfortable, right? And then make the necessary adjustments. Modify your coaching style, your pace, or the underlying circumstance to get through that barrier. Excuse me. You want to make sure they feel safe. A lot of people feel vulnerable at work. They want to be embarrassed. They don't want to feel that they let somebody down, and they don't want to feel like everybody else is talking about them. So you want to make sure you create that space by maintaining strict confidence, and when you talk to them, respond to them positively when you question them or you challenge them. Essential tools for your coaching toolkit. 360 feedback is an excellent way. There's different personality assessments that are out there that I put in here. Strengths inventories. You can use some of these Clifton strengths or VIA character strengths that you can pull right offline. Value clarification. Exercises that show to identify core values aligned with goals. Visualization techniques, those are important. And then journaling, right? Maybe you want the person to keep a journal, so by writing it out, it provides that opportunity for self-awareness, and it lets them kind of see things through your eyes if they're writing it out. And sometimes they'll understand it when they have to write it and describe it, because if they're just thinking about it, it may not be working for them, right? Coaching different coaching styles. Here's a couple of different, the kinetic learning, the visual learners, and the auditorial learners. These are different coaching styles that when you look at your coachee, it's something that you want to be able to identify, right? So the kinetic learners, they prefer learning by doing and physical experience. The visual learners, they process information best through images and visual organization. And the auditorial learners learn effectively through listening and discussion. So you want to learn which one is your coachee, so you can develop your plan and you can implement your plan, what's going to work for them, so all the stars align. It's very important right now in this day and age. It's the coaching across generations. That's something we're all dealing with. Each generation's different, and it's nothing new. Each generation's different. It's something that we all have to go through. I provided here on a slide. You can go through and see that the different generations, the different names of generations, on kind of how they deal with things. The baby boomers clearly are different from Generation Alpha, which is current. So you want to use this. You can use this to kind of help you depending on the person that you're coaching. So it's important to understand this because, again, generations learn differently. They were taught differently. The current generation, the alpha generation, they're more digital interactive, and they're teaching us all different things this generation. So those are things that we want to stay on top of, especially if we're coaching somebody who is smarter than us when it comes to the digital world. We want to recognize that, right? We want to recognize that. Don't let it scare us off as coaches, but recognize it so we can let them know, listen, teach us, I do it to my kids. Teach me. I don't know anything about that. Teach me how to do this. So it's important that we recognize the generational gaps. Virtual coaching, this is where you can do remote or hybrid coaching. I'm a big person to do it face-to-face, but there's opportunities where you could do virtual coaching depending on the person. So just weigh that out because sometimes when you're doing virtual coaching, if they don't have a sterile environment, they may be distracted from things in the background. Measuring coaching effectiveness, again, you have the tangible results, the behavioral changes that are there, feedback collection, and the return on investment. Those are the areas that you really can gauge your coaching styles. You as a coach, you can take this and develop your own template that can help you kind of grade yourself on how well of a coach you are. Creating a coaching development plan. I think this is very important. It's like a strategic plan or a business plan. If you have a business, you create your coaching development plan. It gives you the opportunity to know what type of coach you are, what your strengths, weaknesses are, where are the areas that you want to improve in, what you're trying to accomplish. And you can have a coaching development plan for every person that you're coaching. So, and the reality is that you should have a plan for all your employees anyways. You should have a tickler file for all your employees, depending on your span of control of employees. You can have a coaching section, coaching development plan section within that. And that can also help them when it comes to their evaluation process, performance reviews. You can use the positive stuff that you've done for coaching. You can put that in their performance plan or their evaluation to show that, it's a good employee. They thrive real hard. They have a positive attitude. And when things aren't necessarily going well for them, they put it in high gear and you never see negativity or a bad attitude. So you can use this coaching development plan as an opportunity, not only for you, but for your coaching. Common pitfalls to avoid. Again, ask those questions. Don't necessarily give advice when it comes to coaching. Let them be the driver of it. You don't want to be judgmental. You want to be over controlling. And again, you don't want to become the rescuer where you're giving them all the answers and then they can't think for themselves, right? So you don't want to enable them. Key takeaways today, coaching creates partnership. It's very important. Effective coaching balances support with challenge. Great partnership empowers employees to discover their own solutions. Skills can be developed. Core coaching competencies like active listening, power questioning, and providing feedback can be systematically improved through practice. Structured approaches using the frameworks of the GROW model or the other 3 models are very intuitive to where they can help you structure how you're going to do coaching. And then strength drives success. Focusing on and identifying leverage strengths creates more sustainable performances for fixing the weak areas of the person that you're coaching. Here's some references that are good reading material if you like to read and do some follow-up. There's some good areas here that helped me build this PowerPoint. My contact information is here. If you need anything, my cell phone number is there. Feel free to call or text. My email's there. Our company website is there. I'm very excited for the future of these webinars. This is the first of many that I think can develop and provide you and arm you with information of leadership skills. I challenge all of you to always just be improve every day. Just do a little bit of leadership growth every day, and you'll be a very dynamic leader within your organization. If you need anything, please get a hold of me, and I wish you all nothing but success. I look forward. Hopefully, you're all on the rest of the 15 other webinars that are planned, so you can learn through your journey. And the main thing for me is take care of the communities that you've been entrusted to serve. Somebody saw something in all of you to be in a leadership position or be in the position that you're in to complement the organization that you work for, and that transgresses into your community. So please make sure you put your community first. If you're a leader, make sure you take care of employees. And all of you, please make sure you go home tonight and every night, and you make sure you take care of your families, and you get that family time, and you shut your leadership position off or your work position off. All right, Brooke, that's the end. I don't see any questions in the chat, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Yay! Thank you so much, Will. That was an absolutely incredible kickoff to the leadership series. I hope we see everybody else in the subsequent sessions. There's actually 3 this week to kick off this leadership series, but I'll get into that in just a second. I have put a link to today's webinar feedback survey for you in the chat. It is also in the shared notes section, but this takes about 2 to 3 minutes to complete. I do want to say it is anonymous. So if you feel a little weary about like your name or your email being attached, it won't be completely anonymous. And it just tells us at the Native Learning Center what we can continue working on, what is working really well. And then the feedback goes to our instructors also. So it does help everybody involved, from us at the Native Learning Center to you, our attendees, to Will, our instructor. We hope you can join us for day 2. That's going to be becoming management material. And that is actually tomorrow, same time, same place. So now that you guys are on the learning platform, you will just log in tomorrow at 2 p.m. if you are available while the live webinar is happening, and you'll see that green banner at the top of the screen, just like you did today. And it'll say Becoming Management Material Live Webinar. You'll click on that, and then you will be there for the webinar. But it's 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 12 p.m. Mountain, 11 a.m. Pacific, and 10 a.m. Alaska. So those will always be our webinar times. And this is a rare Wednesday webinar, so we hope we can see you guys join. If you want to check out this recording as well as our other recorded webinars, you can find them on our YouTube channel in the Catheta webinar archive. There is a link to access that playlist in the shared notes section as well. And then we hope you can check out our other upcoming training events. We do post about them on our social media all the time. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, Twitter. If you are somebody who likes to listen to podcasts, here at the Native Learning Center, we do have an in-house produced podcast. It's called the Hope Thing, a Native American podcast. You can listen to that wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you're like me and you actually like to watch people interview their guests, we take those recordings as well and we put them on our YouTube channel too. There's a whole playlist called Hope a Thing, a Native American podcast if you would like to view. But otherwise, that is all we have for you today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in for the kickoff of the leadership series. As I said, we will be on here tomorrow at 2 p.m., same time, same place, for Becoming Management Material. So we hope to see you back. And I will post the recording to this tomorrow morning to our YouTube channel. It has to generate overnight. But I will post that. So if you want to share with your friends, share with your colleagues, feel free. It'll be available to you. But otherwise, that is all we have for you today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in again, and I hope to see you tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and shut the recording off, but I am going to leave the class itself open.